The following is an AZPM original production.
For AZPM, I'm Mark McLemore, and this is Arizona Spotlight. Coming up, learn about some interesting history behind the Reid Park Zoo from the Arizona Daily Star Street Smarts columnist David Leighton. Visit the Word of Mouth Print Space, a volunteer-led printmaking studio that makes workshops and resources affordable to local artists of all skill levels. Escape the summer heat with the power of imagination at the Pima County Public Library's annual Megamania, a free all-ages festival of fantasy, science fiction, cosplay, games, and crafts. And meet Tom Carlson, the 91-year-old founder and president of the Naco Wellness Initiative. They're helping to improve the lives of others in the border communities around Sonora, Mexico. Those stories are all next on Arizona Spotlight. Since the 1960s, many attitudes about zoos and aquariums have evolved and become more nuanced in relation to what is best for both the animals and the spectators. But zoological parks will always be a source of wonder and curiosity for kids. After concluding 3 years of research and interviews with people who were there, David Leighton, the Arizona Daily Star's regular Street Smarts columnist, has written a comprehensive early history of Tucson's Reid Park Zoo, covering 1965 to 1978. His diligence in reporting the story is being recognized by the Arizona Historical Society, who are publishing Leighton's work in the next edition of the Journal of Arizona History, which comes out later this month. I asked David Leighton to join me to talk about the zoo, and I started by asking him if being published in the journal is an achievement for a local historian.
Definitely. I mean, the Journal of Arizona History, which is produced by the Arizona Historical Society, is probably the most prestigious historical journal in the state. So getting published in there is definitely a feather in the cap, one might say. It's definitely kind of a step in the right direction.
And you began researching this story more than 3 years ago. We had a conversation about the Dye Zoo, D-Y-E. I always feel I should spell that first word for people so they understand. But that was a really interesting chapter in Tucson history and kind of an impromptu zoo that never really got developed. Following that, though, Randolph Park became the site of a different development that has had this history since 1965. David, tell us a little bit about who Gene C. Reid was.
So Gene C. Reid was the son of Maurice Reid, who had the large Orange Grove acreage up there on what's now Orange Grove Road. Mm-hmm. He grew up growing citrus. He grew up growing dates and stuff like that. Very unique part of Tucson's history. When they decided to set up a park system here in town, he was a perfect person to bring in to lead it. And so that's how he ended up becoming the leader of what's now Tucson Parks and Recreation, because he had that background, agricultural background, and that's how he was chosen for that. Mm-hmm. It was a role he was in for many, many years, pretty much his whole life.
Your article begins by pointing out that even before there was a zoo there, though, there apparently were some peacocks.
Yeah, prior to the start of what became the zoo, there were actually a couple peacocks that I believe were just dumped in the park. At the time, Bob Charles, who was a volunteer for Gene C. Reid, was working at the Rose Garden. He remembers hearing the distinct sound they make, which is called the train rattle. So he believed that there was probably a pair of peacocks just dumped in the park, and they just walk around, but there was no zoo there at the time.
The first kind of serious attempt to make a structured environment for animals seems to be the Tucson Prairie Dog Town. Now, growing up in Texas, we had relatives in West Texas, and we would drive through Lubbock, and we would occasionally stop at the Prairie Dog Town in Lubbock. It's quite an interesting affair. So Tucson got some prairie dogs donated?
Correct. So Emerson Hall, who was the number 2 guy in the Tucson Parks and Recreation system, was friends with a guy named Stump Hamilton, who was in charge of the Lubbock, Texas Parks and Recreation. So he actually was the one who arranged for the prairie dogs to come here to Tucson, and he also helped with building their enclosure for what became the first first enclosure, first
Attraction.
attraction to what became a zoo later on.
In 1966, it sounds like things are going pretty strong. Besides the animals we've mentioned, there were goats, skunks, raccoons, pigs, lambs, rabbits, and a wide variety of birds. Also a French goose, turtles, coatimundi, llamas, foxes, and a white-faced calf named Jennifer.
And Jennifer was one of Gene C. Reid's favorite animals. I think because Jennifer's mother had passed away, so they received her when she was very young. And I think he just kind of felt very kind of fatherly towards the animal.
There was also an interesting way to advertise the zoo that really didn't cost much money, and that was taking a dromedary camel named Sheik to the movies.
Correct, yeah. I mean, back in the 1960s, the zoo budget didn't really include money for advertising. So one of the things they would do is one of the senior keepers would take Sheik the camel down to 22nd Street and Alvernon Way to what was known as the Cactus Drive-In. It later became the De Anza Drive-In, and he would stand there with the camel outside of the drive-in. People would take pictures with it. It was a way of advertising the zoo, letting people know, hey, we've got camels here, we've got other animals here, and so they'd take pictures and they'd share it with their friends and stuff like that, and it would help advertise the zoo.
What can you tell us about an event that's referred to as the first polar bear crisis in the history of the Arizona desert?
Back in the 1960s, late 1960s, I think it was, Gene C. Reid decided he wanted to bring in some polar bears from Russia. At the time, the budget was still small. They were only going to have a small cage and a small little swimming area, and people didn't like the idea. Tucsonans didn't like the idea. They thought it was cruel to bring this majestic animal to a place that's, very, very hot. And so people started protesting that and saying this was not a good idea. Reid had said, I talked to this expert and that expert, and they said they'll be fine. And that kind of led to the first controversy related to the zoo. So that kind of started the zoo kind of on a negative path, but would end up, creating a better zoo in the end.
You discuss how in December 1969, the City Council appointed a 9-member Tucson Zoological Commission to oversee what was going on there, and the Humane Society also got involved at that point and began to check regularly on the animals' welfare.
Correct, yeah. The commission was created due to the protests. The main job of the commission really was to come out with a master plan. When Reid had started the zoo, it was really kind of here and there, just whatever came his way, whatever money he could get, whatever animals were there. There was no real plan for the future. I mean, there might have been one in his head, but there wasn't really one out there. So the commission really was there to create a master plan to hand over to the city of Tucson.
After the polar bears arrived, the next crisis goes back to our elephant friend Sabu and the trainer that the zoo had hired, Carl Weiss. What can you tell me about those events that occurred in 1970?
So while the controversy over the polar bears was still kind of going on, an incident took place where Carl Weiss, who was in charge of Sabu and his mate Connie, he was moving Sabu from one area to the other, separating him from Connie. And at the same time, people were working on a metal fence, which may have actually triggered this as well. But he starts moving him across, and Sabu just got really angry and just slammed him to the ground and then slammed him against the pole and actually held him against the metal pole. And then finally, he let go and dropped him, and staff kind of pulled him out of Sabu's cage area.
Did we survive?
We survived, went to Tucson Medical Center. His body was pretty messed up, but he did survive and came back a month later to the zoo. But that event and that action, the violence by Sabu, really caused concern with Reid and the commission. Most of the elephants in zoos are normally females, which are more tame, less aggressive, smaller in size. And so there was concern after what happened whether they should keep him or give him away to another zoo or whatever else. But the commission decided that he should be euthanized. They didn't believe that another zoo would want someone who's potentially violent, or an animal is potentially violent. people got very upset. It became a really, really big deal. People were saying, no, we want this animal to live. And it went up to the city council, the mayor, and they decided that Cebu was going to stay alive, but they had to start building bigger enclosures and better spaces for these animals. So Cebu's action, while as shocking and surprising to most people, ultimately led to the change in the zoo to what it is today, a much bigger, healthier area for the animals. I mean, they were put in cages and stuff like that. Now they're no longer really in those cages. So his actions really led to the changes that changed the zoo to a much improved zoo and much more humane zoo, which exists today.
Listeners can visit the Arizona Daily Star at Tucson.com to read the two-part article that David Leighton wrote for his Street Smarts column. On July 15th, the Journal of Arizona History, a publication of the Arizona Historical Society, will present the complete version of the article, in addition to a similar history of the Phoenix Zoo and a photo essay, all by our friend David Leighton. Learning to make art is a passion held by many, but getting started in something like screen printing could easily become a complicated and costly endeavor. Let's visit a little-known labor of love in Tucson that's offering guidance to aspiring artists of any skill level. They're invited to try their hand at what may be a new form of expression for them, without risk or unnecessary expense. AZPM's Sophia Hammer reports.
The word-of-mouth print space is a busy artistic screen print spot for those who come in, but that wasn't always the case. It began as a biker clubhouse on the west side of Tucson, but Alex Lunada had a different vision for the space.
Yeah, here's also another inaccessible seeming creative outlet that we all wish that we had when we were young. And so that's why we're there to be you can actually do this. You don't have to be very good at it, but you can still use this as an avenue to express yourself and empower your voice.
Alex painted walls, built shelves, and installed screen printing equipment, aiming to create a community-accessible space for Tucsonans to learn and explore screen printing in an environment that wasn't intimidating. The space began with their passion for screen printing, which they said started at 17 years old.
Made it to Tucson at some point. That press got brought here, and it just lived in closets and stuff, and had so many friends always seeing me my twice a year print thing be oh, we want to learn how to screen print. And I was cool, one day when this lives somewhere. And then I think in 2018 or 2019, I had a Signal group thread with 3 other people. We're going to start a print. We're looking for a little studio.
Screen printing is a delicate process using a lot of materials that get messy fast, like squeegees, screens, screen clamps, and especially ink. Alex said their commitment is to make screen printing a place where messing up is a good thing.
I think in the way that we try to teach stuff too is pretty loose and open and sloppy to be I don't know, when I'm teaching workshops, it's kind of people are so scared to mess up and be it's actually fine. I'm going to mess up too here, and someone has to mess up, and being very supportive.
Word-of-mouth print space also functions as a place that encourages dialogue and activism around social issues. They have printed shirts for Tucson Abortion Support Collective and have hosted Printing for Palestine events.
I think also people coming to the space that are here for political activism sort of things, but then see this as a way to have fun with art and that they can do that. Or people coming in to print their art prints and then see the stuff up here and are I'm going to ask some questions about this, or just show up. Yeah, I think supporting mutual aid projects has been really important.
Nick Gomez is a volunteer at Word of Mouth. He says the space is both an outlet and a platform to advocate.
So I started out printing shirts for Food Not Bombs or anti-racist action groups in Phoenix where I grew up. And I just that's how I got involved with activism, was through learning art and art practice, whether that be music or visual art. It was just something that kept me out of trouble where I grew up. So I was this is a much more productive use of my time than what I see my friends or relatives, getting involved with. So to me, I feel it was really important to stay committed to art.
When asked about the importance of art spaces like word-of-mouth print space, Danny Alvarez, a newer volunteer, says they are important because they are revolutionary.
I think that every single person is an artist, and I've always kind of felt that, and I think it's so cool to like finally, for me personally, to like finally have a community space that I can share with other people and like remind everyone that comes in that they can make something cool. And yeah, it feels cool because community art spaces like are revolutionary, I think, and like have been in the past and continue to be. And I hope that we are too.
Alex hopes to do more programming with the classes they teach and host more events. However, they said it's support and funding that helps communities like these continue to grow. For Arizona Spotlight, I'm Sophia Hammer.
Comic-Cons and fan gatherings to celebrate animation, manga, gaming, and cosplay attract global attention on the internet. But few young enthusiasts of these worlds of imagination have the luxury of being able to travel and pay convention prices to be among the shared experience. But every summer in Tucson, the Pima County Public Library offers a free, all-ages, one-day festival called Megamania that offers a safe and accessible fan experience. Joining me now are two of the organizers of this year's 11th annual Megamania. Meet John Munoz and Paige Carlson, who begins.
I grew up here in Tucson, and I grew up going to Comic Cons and anime cons since I was like 15. And you want to make your costume, and then you want to show up, and then you want to be with other people who are dressed up as your favorite characters or in the same show that you're dressed up as. But it gets expensive. You can't really afford a hotel for like 3 days. It was really nice when I saw the first Megamania. And I think at that point it was like Manga Mania. It was at the Wilmot Library. And now I love that we can do it again so that people can kind of have a no risk, no commitment experience where they're like, come in, check out what it's about. And then maybe if they want to go to like Tucson Comic Con in a few months, that's a great option too.
Mm-hmm. John, did you have any kind of personal connection to this kind of fandom as you were growing up?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've been a huge fan of Comic-Cons for at least a decade and a half now. The Phoenix Fan Fusion is my favorite, the one that I go to every year. And Paige and I have talked about how some of the elements of a Comic-Con that attract her really aren't on my list. I really go for other activities. For the Megamania, something like the writing workshop, Moonshot, Reach for New Writing Heights, that's something that I would go to. Or the discussion on whether or not a certain character is a superhero or a supervillain, with a lot of audience participation that Scott Madison and Jeff Schwartz are going to be putting together. That's something that I would, go to. But the cosplay, the costuming, not so much. I enjoy looking at it, but I don't think I've ever asked anyone, hey, can I get a selfie with you? I've never done that.
How is the discussion about superhero or supervillain going to keep itself from being all about Harley Quinn?
Yeah, I've been thinking about like who he's going to be covering. Magneto maybe, or certainly Loki. Yeah, he's done some good things, done some bad things. Wait a minute, is that a superhero or a supervillain?
Do the ends justify the means?
Yeah, so that's something I would love to go to.
I'd be curious to know, Paige, about some of the ways that Megamania has transformed in response to the needs of the audience.
Well, from the first time that I went, it was a lot more Japanese media focused, which at the time was really what I was looking at. But now it seems to be becoming more of just a general Comic-Con, which I think is really good because then it incorporates the anime and the manga that people like with gaming, with discussing supervillains and superheroes, with I know DC, the Justice League of Arizona is going to be there with Batman and Superman.
And their leader, Dr. Fate.
Yeah, and we've got the Ghostbusters who are going to be there, and we've got pirates who are going to be there. So it's kind of turned into something for everybody, something that anyone can be interested in. If you're interested in art or storytelling, or if you just want to play a board game with your family, we have really interesting, fun board games you might not have picked up otherwise.
John, I think you mentioned that you've been working on this year's Megamania for about 9 months now. Well, I'd like to know about a few of the events that you have planned. So who are some of the speakers that will be appearing or performers that others might want to come to see?
There's going to be a character design workshop. A local artist, illustrator, Ross Dema, is going to be putting that on. Also, we're going to have Natalia Lopez, who's going to be teaching us how to make dice goblins. We'll also have how to draw cartoons and comic books with Frank Powers. He's well known locally with his comic book mobile.
He's great.
Moonshot, Reaching New Writing Heights. We're going to have the writer-in-residence for the Pima County Public Library, Elaine A. Powers, who's going to be presenting that. We're also going to have a cosplay showcase, so everybody who comes dressed in costume can take the stage and show what they've got and what they've created with an audience. And there will be people who have built their costumes there. So we are going to have a cosplay creation spot. This would be like a cosplay factory or a cosplay workshop where people can go in and make capes and masks and so forth. This year, I think they're also going to be having pool noodle lightsabers, so that'll be an option for some of the younger kids. We have kids crafts. We'll have all sorts of gaming. So not only will we have role-play gaming, D&D and Quest and a few other role-playing games, but also we'll have some tournaments going on, video gaming. This year it's going to be Smash Brothers and Mario Kart throughout the day.
And there's supposed to be a really good sketch comedy group, right?
Oh my goodness,
Right?
I saved the very best for last.
Thank you.
Yeah, we're going to be starting off again this year with Keep Tucson Sketchy. They're going to be doing a stage presentation, and all their comedy is going to be themed to Comic-Cons.
And in the interest of transparency, we should reveal that Paige might be a performer in that group.
I might have a horse in this race. I don't know.
I forgot to mention that we're also going to be having, throughout the day, escape rooms. Those are probably the hardest to get into, the big-ticketed items.
Well, they're supposed to be hard to get out of.
They are supposed to be hard to get out of, and in this case, because when you have more than 5 or 6 people trying to escape the room, you lose people if you have a 10-person group. So we're keeping our group small, and we're only going to be able to go so many times. It's a 5-hour program, so there might only be enough tickets for about 70 or 80 people, and we're going to have over 1,000 people at Megamania. So that's the first challenge for anybody who wants to go to an escape room, is to immediately go to that area as soon as we open at noon and grab your ticket. It might be for right away, it might be for an hour and a half later, but that would guarantee their way to get into the escape room and try to get out of it.
And John, remind everyone where and when will Megamania be?
On Saturday, July 20th, from noon to 5 p.m. at the Pima Community College downtown campus.
Thanks to my guests, Paige Carlson and John Munoz from the Pima County Public Library. We have a link to the complete Megamania 2024 schedule on the Spotlight page at azpm.org. Many people dream of a carefree and relaxing retirement, but Arizona resident Tom Carlson is experiencing a different senior lifestyle. Now 91 years old, Carlson is well into his third profession. He's the president and executive director of a nonprofit dual national organization that's been transformational for many thousands living near the U.S.-Mexico border. Last summer, Tony Paniagua visited Sonora, Mexico, and brought back this story.
After working at AT&T in Chicago for 25 years, Tom Carlson began a new career in the restaurant industry in Chicago and Phoenix. When he completed that chapter 2 decades later, he thought he would take a much-needed break. He retired in southeast Arizona, just a few miles north of Mexico.
My wife and I moved to Bisbee in 2003, and after getting bored with house chores, I looked at the border. I did not know a thing. I came down, and at that time they were building a migrant center. And so I helped out with that, and in that process, I met many people from the Naco community.
Carlson also discovered the Naco Wellness Initiative. It's a nonprofit organization established by churches and healthcare groups in 2004. He joined their efforts as a volunteer in 2006. 2 years later, he was chosen as the president and executive director, a job he's held, also as a volunteer, ever since.
We started with once a month medical screenings over in Naco, Arizona, where professional medical people would come down from Tucson and from Phoenix, and for a day or so would see people coming from Naco, Sonora as well, but also from Bisbee in the surrounding area. But as it turned out, the fence was built soon after that, and the people from Naco, Sonora could not come over. And it was at that time that we decided we could do our best work on this side of the border.
He's referring to the south side of the international boundary, where thousands of people have benefited over the years.
And we ended up with 2 clinics to provide primarily wellness and healing services. We teach diabetes prevention and management. We run chronic disease workshops. and we do some physical therapy. We have a great exercise program. The Zumba ladies are there early in the morning. And then we do a lot of programs for kids and for senior living as well. So it's kind of morphed into what we do now over time based on what the people of the community have said that they want the most.
A recent and large addition is a thriving community farm and garden where we met and spoke during a harvest festival. The event attracted hundreds of residents from both sides of the border to celebrate the Naco Wellness Initiative and its people.
It just keeps on going and growing, and I guess the community likes what we do, and we just keep on doing it.
The 1.5-acre lot produces a variety of nutritious vegetables destined for needy families and senior citizens at no cost to them. The power of women fuels the property. They are in charge of day-to-day operations.
Mi directora, Lupita Sánchez, estoy yo, Isela, Lupe, Ceci, y Yesenia.
That's the voice of Norma Bernabé mentioning the names of her co-workers. Bernabé began participating in the initiative more than a decade ago, and she adores this project.
Antes estaba, como puedes ver a los alrededores, pues.
As you can see, looking around this property, it used to be full of garbage, weeds, and broken glass. But we started cleaning it 3 years ago, and it's become more productive with each new season.
And the impacts are being felt by many other people, including Lupita Sanchez. She met Tom Carlson years ago, shortly after she had closed her pharmacy in Naco, Sonora. She wanted to help, so she offered that extra space to the group.
Personalmente, es maravilloso.
Personally, it is marvelous to work for my community, to have a positive impact on the families with many needs.
La gran sorpresa es que le abrí la puerta a un ángel guardián de esta comunidad.
The big surprise is that I opened the door to an angel, a guardian angel. And without knowing it then, I would become his right-hand person south of the border. This great man has been a mentor in my life, and this experience has changed me.
Y me ha cambiado mi vida.
And for Tom Carlson, none of the progress would have been possible without hundreds of volunteers, families, professionals, and donors who keep the mission alive. What keeps you going? How old did you recently turn?
90. Well, you don't realize your age so much the more you keep going. And I want to stay vertical, and, this is a great way to do it. I love it. It energizes me. 100 is 10 years away. There's a lot of work to be done.
For Arizona Spotlight, I'm Tony Paniagua reporting from Naco, Sonora, Mexico.
Thank you for listening to Arizona Spotlight. This show is a production of AZPM. The production engineer is Jim Blackwood. Production assistance by Alicia Vasquez. I'm producer and host Mark McLemore.
AZPM podcasts are made possible in part by donations from listeners like you. Learn more at support.azpm.org. Thank you.